So do we have, oh, thank you, Kelly. You were on mute, I think, Kelly. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, I think we have a quorum as far as I can see, and I would, before we even, well, let's call the meeting to order. And then I would, first of all, like to thank the City of Middleton staff for taking extra time here above and beyond out of your busy work days already to come and meet with us. We really appreciate it. And it'll be very helpful, and your input will be very valuable, I'm sure. So given that, do we have an approval of the previous minutes, or do we have any amendments for the previous minutes?
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, do we have a second?
Do we,
A second.
in this case, do we need to have a motion and vote? Because if there are no amendments, then it should,
That's true.
by my understanding of the rules of order, to just
You're always good at these things.
default as approved.
Okay, so default is approved. And okay. So thank you for that. And what I so minutes are approved. And what I also just forgot to mention, in addition to the city staff, definitely we very, very much appreciate MG&E and your representatives from being here. Again, you're taking time out of your busy work days, and this is above and beyond. So we really appreciate your taking this extra time into your evenings as well. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to public comments. I see Robert Owen's hand up.
Well, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to comment on a couple of things relating to the draft SPP. First, it has a questionable provision, which I'd like to call to the committee's attention on page 14 of the agenda packet, near the bottom of the page. Calls attention to the city goal to achieve 100% renewable energy in its own operations by 2050. This should be 2040, according to Common Council Resolution 2018-32. And that resolution also required interim reductions of 66% by 2030 and 88% by 2035. Climate change keeps getting worse. The IPCC issued another dire warning today. City needs to get serious about achieving near-term climate goals, not pushing them back. Has the council diluted its 2018 energy goals for the city, or has the author of the draft SPP simply conflated whole city and city operations goals? The 2018 goals for city operations fossil-free by 2040 should be reaffirmed in the draft SPP. Otherwise, it actually looks like a delay of compliance with that previous decision. The draft SPP should also follow Dane County's lead and require staff proponents of fossil fuel equipment to justify their recommendations in writing or have them disapproved. In Dane County government, the staff member proposing a piece of fossil fueled equipment must justify the purchase as explained by Joe Parisi here a few weeks ago. Such a requirement should be in Middleton's new SPP. Finally, I'm disappointed by the decision by the chair to disallow citizen questioning of MG&E this evening. Several of the 350.org group have been researching streetlights and would have been pleased to help the city flesh out key facts this evening. Unfortunately, that will not happen. Public decision-making will suffer. This is not a good move. Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you, Robert. Heaven, you are up next.
Thank you. I'm having trouble with my video, but anyway, I'm also with the Middleton 350 Climate Working Group. And as Bob has alluded, we've spent a fair amount of time on streetlights and their replacement with LEDs over the last several months. We think there's a great energy, financial, and emissions benefit from replacing old fixtures and bulbs with LEDs and doing it as soon as possible. In fact, we think a lot of money can be saved very quickly, paying back the cost. if it comes down to that. Also, we put together 4 pages of questions. I'm not going to go through them at all, but we are curious at knowing exactly what MG&E's current policy is for replacing streetlights, and to what degree the rate structure might change in the near future to make it to incentivize communities to change, because we all benefit from that, although MG&E might not make quite as much money. And given a lack of resources, MG&E seems to have one person for the entire metro area or the MG&E customer base in the area who changes out these fixtures and bulbs. And I met him last week in Middleton Hills. He verified that. He's a one and only guy. So we're wondering, how the heck can this get done by MG&E anytime soon? And what is the possibility for local communities finding another contractor to do it for them? Also, Middleton needs detailed data from MG&E, both from a technical standpoint and financial, to help them plan for this transition. And that's my comments for tonight on the streetlight issue. Definitely support getting that through the council as early as possible, and it looks like it's on the agenda for tomorrow night, and would support the resolution to that end. With respect to the SPP, it certainly is better than what we have now, which is virtually nothing. And we think it covers a lot of the areas that we are concerned about, accountability being the first and foremost one, staff job descriptions, performance evaluations, and training will all be involved with this new SPP, which is great. The MSC is expected to periodically review it and update it when appropriate, and that is good too. It would help if tonight we could get a little more information on how the general approach was decided for it, and find out whether there's an opportunity to provide more comments, and also what the expected schedule for getting it to the council would be. And again, we've been advocating for this for a long time, and the sooner the better is good for us. We would like an opportunity, though, to provide a little bit of feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Dick, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly respond to kind of a point of information to Bob. We have made some changes that we'll be discussing later about the draft resolution that cleared up some of the language in the whereas thing. So your points that you raised, we are already on top of making some changes. So we'll be discussing them soon later, right, Christy?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for the public comments. Very much appreciated. Dick, you can put your hand down if you don't mind. Okay, so next on to the, and I will mention that tonight really truly is a packed agenda. So I'm going to purposely, for that reason, usually I really am in favor of people, really talking until they feel like they've said all they can say and, all they need to say and things like that. However, we have number 5, we want to make a referral. 6, we need to vote on. We need to talk about number 7 for sure. We'll give an update on the sustainable purchasing policy. So we just really do have a lot of things to get to. So I may be cutting people a little bit short or just trying to move things along today more than usual. So just wanted to put that out there. So Kelly's staff report. Thank you, Kelly, for a very well written up report. Any comments, feedback? Dominic, I see you up.
I had a quick question, Kelly, on item 5 in streetlights. You'd mentioned that our EV infrastructure for EV grant evaporated, yet we're still submitting RFPs for the engineering design services. Could you help me knit that together?
Yes, we have $100,000 earmarked for EV charging infrastructure that is leftover money from our solar projects on Lakeview Park Shelter, EMS, and the MOC. And then the grant that we had gotten last summer from the Carbon Reduction Act was worth an additional $163,000, which would have increased the EV infrastructure budget to $263,000 total. And that was going to be used for both infrastructure and actual electric vehicles. But after we had received the award of that grant, they pulled all the funding from all the projects that had received the award because there was something about the state legislature didn't agree with how WSDOT, Wisconsin Department of Transportation, had done some kind of, I don't know if it was fiscal reporting or the way that they decided to dole out the money to the MPOs. And anyway, they pulled it back and said, we'll just do a larger sum at some future date. And so that date is now, but they have revised the eligibility for projects. And now the projects, only projects that deal with streetlights or smart controls in traffic lights. And those are pretty much the only things you can apply for a grant for from just that carbon reduction pot of money, which comes from the bipartisan infrastructure bill.
Great, thank you.
And I'm sorry, Kelly, just to clarify, the state legislature is the one that changed the criteria and yanked things back?
I'm not sure if I'm not sure. I'll forward you the email. I'll forward the entire committee the email I got from WSDOT explaining what had happened. It's kind of
Okay.
bureaucratic speak, but I can clarify that with that email.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Lisa?
Thank you. I have two questions, one about item number 7. You mentioned the EIGP 2022 award. We're going to get $50,000 to deploy this black power. And I'm wondering if kickstarting building electrification projects with an environmental justice focus, if this activity could somehow be folded into the new position description for the building and facilities manager. It seems like this would be, maybe not a direct reference to black power, but some sort of a bullet point to indicate this is something that the building and facilities manager will be expected to take part in, if not lead. So that's one suggestion. And then item number 9, and the council is going to be considering the renewal of the contract with Pelletieri at our meeting tomorrow. And one of the things I want to bring up, it's still in the proposed contract for the next 7 years to have a free paper shredding event in, I forget what months non-cold months, I think is how they phrase it. Anyway, I'm going to use that as an opportunity to suggest that since Waste Services falls under Public Works, that it would make a lot of sense for the Public Works Committee to take the lead on organizing and staffing the shredding event with assistance as available from the Sustainability Committee instead of having that be on our plate.
It's a great thought. Okay, thank you, Lisa. Any other comments, questions for Kelly? Oh, go ahead.
Excuse me, this is continuing the dialogue as it relates to what Lisa was bringing up. Is the EIGP targeting community-wide facilities or city operations facilities? Because it seems like that would influence whether the suggestion to have the facilities staffer take that on his or her plate. It depends on if that person's going to be doing city operations and facilities, then that's maybe not the same thing, or maybe it is. So I'm just asking for clarification on that point.
Yeah, that would be for, it would be community-wide. It would be a tool that the city could use to help with community initiatives. It wouldn't necessarily be something that we would use to expend city money on. It could be a way to help with community-wide electrification projects with a group, a collaboration
Right.
with other entities in Middleton and the county perhaps. But it will give us some really great data on how to
Right,
do
right.
electrification citywide. And I do think it might be a lot for, I think the facilities position is probably going to be focused on city buildings
Right.
only. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So, okay, so the position isn't necessarily defined exclusively for city buildings, or it is, and this would be a stretch we'd have to negotiate with Brian or somebody
It
about.
is Kermit, and the position is strictly for city buildings. And so if this Black Power goes beyond just focus on our city buildings, then I would strike my suggestion.
Okay,
And Kelly, I would suggest that when this grant comes before council, to make it abundantly clear whether it's community-wide or limited to city buildings.
Okay. Thank you. I think that concludes our staff report questions. So we can go on to the streetlight conversation with Jesse. Again, Jesse, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to be here. We appreciate it. And definitely we are here to learn and figure out ways that we can partner with you and help, what we're looking for, but we realize it's not, an instantaneous thing. We're looking to transition to LED light bulbs, and, we just really need to learn more about how we can help facilitate that process. So,
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for having me.
sure.
I guess the one thing I would say is that we're learning also.
Okay.
One of the big things is, as you guys probably in most municipalities is how do you do the switchover? So, and I think, I'm not really for sure, was that Kevin that said he met the lamplighter? Can't
That was,
remember.
yeah, Kevin is a wonderful addition to our meetings. However, he is not technically a member of the committee, just so you're aware.
Sure, no problem. Actually, I was just going to say, because he was correct. There is just one guy, one truck.
Okay.
However, our line crews and contractors, like, Hooper or some others, also change out our streetlights. Because as you can imagine, one guy, it's going to take forever to do that. So we work through our engineering operations. So we'll most likely investigate the need of a change out of a light. And then when we do, we're going to change that out to LED. And one of the things that you guys probably don't know of, but we will be submitting our 2023 rate case. And one of the things that we are doing, we're going to actually propose to the PSC that our standard use of lights will be LED. And so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start doing that. And if we get approval, it'll move a lot faster. And then we'll try to explain more of that. But right now we're at the beginning of a rate case, or we have been working on it. We'll submit it next month. So right now we're just replacing on failure strategy right now. So that's what we're doing. The other thing that we're looking at is how we do the replacement. So one of the things, we want to be uniform. So we just cannot just go out and replace LED in front, or I should say in a row. So on the street, if we had all high pressure sodium and we just go out in the middle of the block and just take a LED out and replace it with LED, functionally, that's not going to be uniform. And there could be some problems right there. So I think we're just asking for flexibility to maintain continuity on the light quality and manage our existing stock. And that's another thing that we're going to have to look at, working with different municipalities as far as stock, where what we want to do is limit the amount of different fixtures that we have to maintain for like, say, Middleton, Madison, Fitchburg, Monona, just kind of do the timeline I did get, I just got that recently, like last week, Thursday or so, is that we're looking to do the vast majority of the LED lights in the next 5 to 8 years. So it's got to be a little bit time frame to get it all done. And so just wondering if you guys had any feedback or if you were comfortable with those numbers.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm sure everyone, or a lot of people have questions. I have a couple of initial ones. That's very helpful summary. Thank you. First question that is off the bat is, it's really helpful to know. You mentioned you're submitting, and let me know if I heard anything wrong, because that's certainly possible. You're doing a 2023 rate case proposal to the PSC next month, did you say?
Been working on it for a couple months, probably since last November or so.
Yeah.
And then we're getting numbers together and we're going to submit that to the PSC. And we're proposing that our standard source of lighting will be LED.
LED, yeah. And so so that's great. Did you say you're submitting it next month? Or you just have been working on it for months?
Yeah, we're submitting the rate case. So
That's
I guess,
yeah.
yeah. So with the rate case is, so probably out of the 20 nuggets that we put into the rate case, one is LED. We'll still have other things like trying to, like, we just got approved yesterday for a solar battery project that we're working with other utilities. So things like that, more EV infrastructure, like you guys said. We got a new EV rate that we have proposed, but we haven't submitted. So we're putting all the language together, and this would be more. There's a couple of them, but one of them would be for multifamily, as far as what we could do. Because right now it's set up, and that's, I just was working on that last week. It was set up, our old program, where you have to actually, if you put EV chargers in multifamily, it has to be dedicated to an actual apartment or suite. And that's what we submitted, and that's what was approved by the PSC. What we're doing to come in this time is that it doesn't have to be tied to an apartment, but it could just be tied to like a house meter or to the building itself. And then we would leave that to the landlord or property owner to decide on how the billing. Right now, it's a 1-to-1. So we're looking to change that up.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
And so when you submit, I'm sure other people are jumping here, when you submit a rate, like you said, 20 nuggets, so let's just say, 20 bullet points, and the LED is one of them. Is it all or nothing? I don't necessarily know exactly the ins and outs of the PSC. So if you submit 20 and they like 17, do they say yes to 17 and no to 3, or is it just all or nothing with the rate case?
Yeah, I've never seen that they have denied something. I think what happens with the commissioners, they might tweak the language on how we do it. But I think most likely, if it's a pretty no nonsense request, it's usually upheld.
Okay.
But then, and I think the other thing that will help us, and you guys are probably one of the advocates, if you don't have multiple interveners that say, no, we don't want this, or it's not the best interest for the customers, then we'll most likely do this. So for what we say is it will benefit them. So as far as the financial part, I think it was mentioned on that, we're not looking at that part as far as the lost revenue. What we're looking at is the money up front that we'll have to put in. So for instance, if we have to hire additional contractors to make this go faster, then that cost has to come from somewhere else. And I know you guys have talked about different grants. I know Kelly has sent information about what you guys are looking at, and that could be a partnership that we could do with you. Because you got to think, probably, I would say majority of the streetlights are owned by the municipality. They're not owned by MG&E. So we used to have maintenance agreements with you, and some of them we still do, similar to like traffic lights. We don't own them, but if, let's say it was an accident, which we just had one last week, where a car hit a street light. Well, we come out there, we try to de-energize the service and then put it back together. If you can't get there as fast enough, then they'll call us. And then what we typically do it's billed back to municipalities for the work that we did or our contractors did. So yeah, I think it's more on the municipalities' part to do that. One other thing I just worked on last week was locating the streetlights for these town of Madison, which is defunct now. It's been annexed into city of Madison and Fitchburg. Well, we had to know where the lighting bill should go to. So we don't really know that. But we've kind of figured out where, because city of Fitchburg will be taking over some of the town of Madison, and then the city of Madison will be taking over some of the streetlights for that are no longer being billed to the town of Madison. So those are a lot of questions that are probably most likely on your end as a municipality.
Okay, thank you. Dick, and then Kermit.
Okay, Jesse, this is not an easy meeting for you to come to, because I have to tell you that I've been on this committee for 5 years and we've been discussing this transition since at least the beginning of my time, and it was a topic that had been discussed probably 4 or 5 years before that. So I feel like that here we are as a community wanting to be progressive and get all the energy savings that we can now, knowing that we have all these goals out at 2030, 2035, whatever the year is, different goals. And we don't want to wait until the end. And this feels like a low-hanging fruit. And it seems like MG&E is totally understaffed to be able to make this change. So 5 to 8 years out is something that felt like we had a promise, or we had some indication could happen when we were told 10 years ago. So it just feels like it keeps getting put off. Now, I went out today, I had actually seen a traffic light at an intersection, is Research Way Boulevard, Research Park Boulevard and Odana Road. And I had to stop there. I was going to the dentist a few weeks ago, and the red was LED and the green and yellow were all the older style bulbs. And that surprised me, because we had been told, at least I had thought that I had learned that, well, we need to change the whole fixture out. We can't just change individual bulbs. But here was one that a red one got fixed, but the others didn't. And quite frankly, our community needs to make changes. And the drug companies, the prescription drugs for like insulin, been dragging their feet, and it hasn't been until recently that they come up with some solutions that basically embarrasses the company. And so now we finally get some action. And I feel like that's kind of analogous to what's happening here. If MG&E is trying to save money, you don't have enough staff, you're the only person that seems to be controlling this, or not controlling, but the spokesperson for it. How do we get action that feels like we're making progress on the way, rather than saying, okay, 5 to 8 years from now, we'll make these changes? But there's a lot of lights. And we have a report that came out, or a summary and a spreadsheet of how many lights in Middleton. We own some and we operate some, but most of them are either owned by us and MG&E controls, or MG&E both owns and controls. And I just feel like we got to make some changes here. And I'm asking you, as a representative of MG&E, how can we help? I mean, if we have to start individuals, you can see even from the public comments, we got people here that really want to see things happen. If people start going to the newspaper and saying that MG&E is dragging their heels on this, and we need to make an emphasis that we want change, how can we get stuff done so that we're making progress in the next 5 years, not waiting 5 to 8 years before some action happens? And I guess I'll stop there and have the right to make a quick comment if it so makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess what the 5 to 8, that's what we believe that we'll have it completed, not that we will start it then. So I think we'll start working on it. Hopefully after this rate case, we can start working on it and the completion date. The other thing, I have to agree with you on timeliness and how things, so for instance, I'm a part of the Sustainable Madison Committee. I've been on there 10 plus years. We've talked as the city of Madison about changing out to LED. Now they've done some on different roads that you can see, like on North Porter 113. They've done some about Aberg. So it's the municipality has done some of it. So I agree with you on that. So we are wanted to do that. One of the things that we also wanted to do as a committee was not only the street lights, but even our overhead security lighting that you see like in the parks and different places like that. And I know that was a big push for the city of Madison to do. So I think what I would suggest initially, and I can look at it, is that we need to actually, in my other guy, Marty Jacoby, he wasn't able to make it, but first get a inventory and you guys should have that because I think you're submitting it to us so that we can bill you monthly, because the streetlights program kind of changed. So I would say get an inventory of what you have as far as streetlights and then make it strategic, because I think that's what we're looking to do for ours. And then we'll be working with the municipalities to make sure that we get that proper number and start going from there. And then, like I said, as far as the product itself, we want to make sure that we get it, and we probably got it narrowed down to 2 or 3 types of lamps. I know in Middleton, I think right there, one of the streets, you have your own decorative LED lights. I think that you guys got from some money from Focus on Energy. So that's kind of what we're looking at to see strategically what's the best way of doing that and different fixtures.
Okay. Thank you. Kermit?
Thanks, Christy. Couple of questions. One, just clarifying your explanation or comments that there's a rate case coming up. This is not like a global rate case where MG&E is redoing its entire rate structure, but this is a particular subset of issues or proposals that are being put before the PSC. Is that the? Yep, you're still.
So I would say most rate cases, and I can't think what we called them. I think we called it, the last one we did wasn't really a rate case, but it was just kind of an agreement with different parties like Cub, Sierra, and things like that. So what we will do in the rate case will kind of shores up what you've seen from, so like for instance, fuel and other costs have gone up. So we have to recover. We also have to do new products and services. Like I was talking about the EV for multifamily. We have a program called Charge at Home. So we have to initially put that money up front, even though it's going to benefit the community. But if we're coming in and trying to get everybody to be electrified, then there's some costs right there. We have goals. So we have our goals as far as meeting 100%. But we have to buy up front. So these different projects that we're working with, Alliant, Excel, We Energies, that money has to come up front and pay for the big solar and battery storage. If we're going to do additional wind, all that money up front. So we need to get approval for that money and know that we're going to be reimbursed. But we also have to make sure that the PSC has to say, because they're not, I know it's kind of hard to believe, but me on a sustainable committee and you guys on a sustainable, but it doesn't mean the same to everybody else. People don't want their rates going up, even though they were bettering the environment. They don't want the rates to go up. So we have to make up a rate case, how we're going to spend that money and then recover it so that everybody benefits from it.
That's a good explanation.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Then one of the issues is it seems to have been communicated in the course of previous discussions in our committee is that there's something about the way the rates are currently structured as it relates to the street lighting, that if we, the city of Middleton, go ahead and change lights out, we still end up paying in some way for the old lights and the old electric charging levels, or whatever the cost structure is there. And that never made sense to me, but people kept on saying, well, yeah, there's something with the rates, and if we change it, then we don't recover our cost advantage, and so it's not affordable. Can you comment or explain what's behind that confusion, or am I confused? Is the person who's telling me that confused? And what's the real story?
No, there, actually, you were not confused. That's what it used to be. I think we're looking to change that. So one of the things that we have to look at is that even though the actual bulb itself will be a lot more efficient, so say, for instance, going from 150 watts down to 16 or 20, well, there's still the distribution part of it. There's still the wiring, there's still the pole, there's still the main, and I think where it came initially is that LED, even though the costs have gone down greatly, but it was still, we didn't really, till a couple of years ago, we didn't actually have a special LED rate. So I think when we're going forward, if LED will be our standard bulb, then we'll probably benefit from like the energy savings like you guys, but we will also. So that's kind of what we're looking at, to change the rates just to benefit, because I agree with you.
Okay, so you're saying that correcting that, addressing that issue that I described as best I could is part of this rate proposal that you're moving forward with to the PSC.
Yes, yeah, because I mean, you got to be flexible, especially when you're doing that large number of LED. It's going to benefit everybody. So I mean, your committee, you guys are right, and we know that. But yeah, it's when we had just onesies, twosies, it wasn't a nice way to put a rate in, because everything doesn't really change.
Right. Okay, and I think I'll try and make this the last one. One part of it is a comment, the other is going to be a question. As far as the comment, just echoing what Dick was raising as a point, that we want things to happen sooner rather than later. This seems like such a straightforward, easy, low-hanging fruit, but easy fruit to pick to make this changeover and have a clear benefit to electricity consumption and carbon emission reduction. So whatever we need to do to help make that happen sooner rather than later, I don't know whether and what the numbers would have to be to make it happen in a year instead of in 5 to 8 years, just to throw out a more ambitious target. I think we want to keep on the table. And towards understanding what might be some complicating factors, I just want you to address maybe a little bit in our minds, perhaps from home lighting. You take your bulb, you take your old bulb, you unscrew the old bulb, you screw in the new bulb, and you're done. Is the technology at that point for street lighting fixtures now, or is there a whole mess of headaches attached? Like, you have to not just replace the bulb, you have to replace the fixture, you have to replace the wiring. I mean, how painful and complicated is it?
I can tell you what I've heard, and Sean, I think Sean was invited to this meeting, so he might know. But I think right now that you had to change that head, and I think it could be a plug and play if it fits in that way. I don't really know if there's a lot of work to it. I think, for instance, like you said, home. So my whole house is LED. It was CFL, but when we did that compact fluorescent, most of us, if I didn't get one free, I wasn't going to spend $15 for a bulb. Now you can get a pack of like 5 or 6 for $4 at Home Depot or Menards. So it's the cost, the initial cost, that's making a difference. And I think once, and like I said, LED technology's there, the bulb's there, but it's still that actual head. And I know one that I've seen, and then we have them in our parking lot at MGE and others do, but we have it like a Cobra type, they call it. And it's just, we could just take that head off and put another one on, and it's just that simple. But as far as cost, I don't know. I don't think, and I don't know, and I'll have to see the rate case that we're putting together and submitting to the Public Service Commission, but I would think we're not at that point where, unless there's some grants that come up, that we could move that time frame dramatically up, because it's just the cost factor and then the labor. So it's the cost and the labor, and then we got, like I said, determine what fixtures are going to be used at what municipality. So right now, I'm not really for sure how we do with you guys when we change out, but like I said, Sean might know this, but you guys probably have a warehouse. So if we need to change out a bulb, Middleton bulbs are located here, and other municipalities have other bulbs at their warehouses, and they might not be the same. Or I shouldn't say bulbs, but the actual fixture. But we want to make it uniform so that we don't have to guess, and we don't really have room for inventory for customers. So it's going to be a lot of partnership. And then, as you know, with the LED, like I have a lot of the money, and then I even had not even just street lights, but even shower heads and things like that. You get them from Focus on Energy, which is basically ran by the Public Service Commission, and Focus Energy is actually supported by monies from the different utilities, investor-owned utilities. So yeah, I think it's that kind of partnership that we're going to have to make this work.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Dominic?
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Just a two-part question. So you kind of alluded to the ultimate constraints on getting this done. You spoke to cost, just upfront cost, presumably of buying new fixtures, and then labor. If you could get a little more specific on that, like it would just help us understand what problem we're facing. And then to follow up to that, if I could ask you to take your MG&E hat off for a second and put your concerned climate citizen hat on, I think you'd be uniquely capable of helping us understand, how do we get this done? Where do we put pressure? We've got options on the table here that include, asking Middleton and Sean's team to own more maintenance on the bulbs. Does that help us get there? I mean, as a concerned citizen, I'd love your perspective on how we just get these bulbs changed over ASAP. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think the key piece is the labor part. I think the labor will help move the time frame. So if you're only having one guy, and then occasionally some of our engineering and construction individuals change out a bulb here and there, it's going to take forever. So what we're going to try to do is a strategic plan to have to address the labor, address the finance of funding for because obviously with the lamps that you have right now, we can't change that lamp out and then put an LED in there. So it's not that simple. You'll actually have to have a different fixture. And then probably, like you said, taking off my MG&E hat, I would say I would put more or less my Sustainable Madison Committee hat on, or it's just my own concern for the environment, is that we need to try to get, and I would say it's more at the state level than the utility level, because obviously utility level, you got to make sure that individuals that don't want to pay for greening up the society, they don't have to pay for it. I know we don't think about it that way. I have green power tomorrow that I buy wind here for my house for the last 15 years. But I can't tell the guy next door that he needs to fund up and help me meet my goals. So I think that's where we're at. So I think at the state level, different grants or legislation that kind of give permission to utilities to spend that money. And that's why all our big projects, we do it with partnership with other utilities, because obviously we can't afford to do that on our own dime. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
So the state level, you mean PSC? Is that what you mean? Like legislators for sure, but then the PSC, I mean, I was wondering, I haven't seen the rate case details, so, you know, like the devil's in the details with the rate, and I don't know that, but, you know, if we looked at the rates and said, oh, those are favorable, and then like even our committee or something, or city committee, you know, sent a letter of support to the PSC in favor of this aspect of the rate case, would that be something?
Yeah, that could be something because it's happened before. I think where the PSC probably looks at people that don't like it and they'll probably listen to them, but the ones that are supporting us, I think we got the support. I think we're going to push it through. Brian Pennington, which is one of our director of rates. I know a couple of you might have spoken to him, but he's kind of working with his team, submitting that. I think it's favorable. We've been blessed to get approval on just about everything that we want to do to better the environment, also to move to our goals. Because if we win, that's the one thing that I should say also, if MGD meets its goals, basically the city of Middleton will meet theirs. Because if our goals is to upgrade the street lighting and do other things, then that looks good on you guys. It looks good on other municipalities. So yeah, we're 100% behind you guys because we want the same thing. And we pretty much want it on the same time frame. I think we're just about everybody's similar to that 2040 there. And we've had some, and as my CEO says, if we can go further, faster, we will definitely do it. And we've done that. And I think there's more to come. So yes, the PSC, I would say, as long as we know we have your backing, we'll push hard for it. And then, like I said, if you guys want to, or just, just keep an eye on the notes. And so I think we should have something out there next month. Usually takes the PSC, from what I've known, we usually submit about April, and we know by the end of November, early December, if we got approved. So it takes a little while, but though the commissioners will review it, and I think this is a favorable thing that we've done. And then, like I said, with the electric vehicle charging hubs that we've done, we're adding that, have not had any fight back from PSC on that. So I think, yeah, that's what I would do, is just keep an eye open.
Okay, good advice. Thank you. Lisa.
Thank you. And thanks, Jesse, for this presentation and this really helpful Q&A. Kelly, I wonder if you'd bring up the resolution so that I can, Jesse, I'd like to get your feedback on the resolved clauses of this resolution that it had been put on the agenda for Middleton's Common Council to consider tomorrow, but we're punting it to a later date so that the Public Works Committee can review it as well. Kelly, go to the resolved. So one of our resolves addresses the rate case. We weren't aware that you've got this one in the works. So it seems like that last resolve stating that we formally request that you pursue and notify the city in advance of a rate case, but that's already done. So that point we can take out, although I am curious to know how the city of Middleton can support the rate case, because you've got this committee and I'm sure the council would want to support it too. But I also want to get your feedback on the second two resolved clauses about specifically in the second one showing on this page, reporting the replacement of replacements. Data tracking is one of the big things that we all want to be doing and need to be doing, and it's hard for us to get our arms around it. And we recognize that you all are trying to do the same thing. How can we have you share that information with us? And we're happy to share what we can with all of you so that we have good data. So that's the second point. And then finally, is there a way for MG&E and Middleton to work together to try to find the funding and to secure the funding? Kelly's really good at getting grants. Is there a way for us to work with you to shake loose some funding so that you can address the staffing situation, the labor situation that is a constraint right now?
So I think I did mention part of the state, the PSC, but there's also like some federal dollars that I think, and I think you guys were pursuing, but I would say continue to pursue. I've seen, you know, the EPA have money. I know they've supported different, not in big total dollars, but I remember when I was working with the, I think it was with Sustained Gain, and we did Empower program, and Middleton, no, not Middleton, Madison and MG&E were partners. And I think we gave them like $60,000. Then the feds came, she actually came at the time, I don't know what her name is now, but she actually came to Madison to present like $100,000. I mean, it's not millions, but it's that kind of thing. When you get different contributors in there, then it makes a difference. So I would say one thing that Middleton could do now that I've mentioned to you guys, if you didn't know that we had the LED in our rate case, is to either send a letter of support for MG&E so that we could submit that with our rate case to the PSC, knowing that how many municipalities wants to move on this and move fast. I mean, one thing I think I heard somebody else said, and I mentioned it also about the electrification. It's, for me as an account manager, I used to work with businesses. I used to go out there and tell them to convert everything from electric to gas. Now I'm telling them a different story. Convert everything from gas to electric for the carbon portion of it and for the environment. So it's going to take a lot of education, but like I said, if we can submit with our rate case, maybe a letter of support from the city of Middleton that they believe in our plan to have that our streetlights standard LED. So I think that's one of the steps that can help. And I did get Kelly some numbers. So I think when you said data, I think that's a really big point. So I could look and see if we can pull up, which I know we can pull up just your streetlights and usage. And I think I shared that with Kelly. So that's a start, so that we can know and we can kind of see what how that supports your goals.
Great, thanks, Jesse. And we definitely can send a letter of support. I think our council would be willing to do that. I guess I would ask, can we see the rate case, the draft, so we know what we're supporting? If you could share that with Kelly, that would be awesome. And then just to reiterate something my colleagues have already noted, you know, we're 5 to 8 years is disappointing for those of us who are very concerned about the climate, see this as low-hanging fruit, and start to despair when we think, wow, if we can't even get the low-hanging fruit in less than 8 years, we're doomed, literally. So anything you can do to go further, faster would be awesome. And the city's goal is 2035 for the city's operations, for electric needs within city operations. So if I know that 5 to 8 years will fall within that goal, but if there's anything we can do to speed this up, we are eager to help. So thank you.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you. Dick.
Yeah, I heard you say, Jesse, that changing the bulbs, but then there's an issue with changing the fixtures. And I just want to get clarification on this, because I saw a fixture, which I took photos of, that had the red bulb as an LED, but the rest of the yellow, the amber and the green were all the traditional bulbs. And so it feels like that you meaning MG&E is going out and changing a bulb when it needs to be changed, but they're already bringing their truck there. It's got to have a bucket to get up to the fixture. And they're not changing the whole light. Now it takes a little more time, but that's more strategic as far as getting stuff done than just changing one bulb at a time when it burns out. So again, I want to get clarification. Do we need all new fixtures to handle the LED bulb unit, or can we use the existing fixtures and put in the LED units in those older fixtures, which because we were told even last year, I think we had extra money and we were thinking about, well, maybe we could buy a whole fixture and it was like $2,600. But if the LED unit can be put in old fixtures, it feels like that's more of an aggressive way to use the current infrastructure. And I want to get clarity on that particular issue, because it feels like if you're only changing one bulb out as it needs it, but not doing the rest of them when you're at the street light fixture, that we're not being strategic.
Yeah, I would have to check with someone. I'm not an engineer, but I know from even with the fluorescence, like office fluorescence, when we switched to LED, and like I said, I would have to talk to an engineer, but then there's a ballast in like the high pressure sodium, and I believe so, and metal halide in those fixtures, where I don't think there's a ballast on the LED. So I don't know if you could do I think what you're saying is not just go bulb to bulb, but you're probably looking at doing a retrofit, where it'd be a retrofit that you probably change out the ballast, and then get the size fixture, or I should say lamp or bulb in there, and then probably use the same. I have not seen this done. And like I said, we have a lot of them around on our campus for MG&E, and I have not seen retrofit done that way for our different, they're similar to streetlights. I have not seen that. We've gotten a whole new different head that we put on there. So yeah, I could check on that and maybe get back to you guys, but I don't know. That's more, I think your public works people might already have looked into that and seen if that retrofit can happen.
Well, most of Middleton's streetlights are either ones we own or the ones that you own. MG&E is responsible for the maintenance. I mean, we have a few that we own and maintain, but the inventory is pretty strongly that MG&E is responsible for maintenance. And like I say, I saw there's 3 different fixtures pointing up off of Odana towards Research Park Boulevard. And all 3 of them had LEDs for the red, but they were using the standard for the other. And it just feels like, if we're being told, well, we got to change the whole fixture and that's expensive and it takes time, but yet that doesn't seem to be at least the case that I'm noting. And I think we need clarity on this. And, quite frankly, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to see us move forward on it. And we're going to nicely try to nudge MG&E along, but quite frankly, your MG&E's timetable is not as aggressive as we'd like, and we're going to try to figure out, I'm sure, some way of getting more incentive to do this. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chris, I'm just going to jump in and ask whether Sean, who
Yeah.
is an engineer, as I understand it, might be coming in with his hand raised to address Dick's questions or help address that, in which case I would invite or ask if he would be allowed to jump to the front of the line, because I think
Yeah.
it's just for closing out Dick's conversation, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah.
And if it's something completely different, Sean, then never mind. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dominic and Laura, I see your hands up, but let's move the floor right now to Sean and Kelly. If you both want to comment or, jump in together, fine, go for it. You're up, Sean.
Right, and I would say, number one, I'm not the right kind of engineer for some of these questions, but replacing an incandescent bulb with an LED bulb is a different thing than
Right.
replacing an HID bulb lamp with an LED lamp. And so they're different animals. As Jesse was saying, we've got a ballast and a lamp right now, but what we really need is a driver and an LED array. So replacing the whole I have heard of retrofit kits for certain kinds of fixtures, but for the most part, the fixture that we've standardized on recently, which is an LED, it's made by Leotech, called Comfort View, I believe. And it's very much a Cobra head style fixture, good for street lighting and at a reasonable cost. Would, as far as I know, require replacement of the whole fixture to be able to replace the kind of light source, if that helps. So on a traffic signal, it's just a different animal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kelly, do you have comments? Go ahead.
I had a question for Jesse about the rate, the facility charge, the monthly facility charge. My understanding now as it stands is that if MGE replaces one of our streetlights with an LED, then we'll have a greater monthly service charge because of that LED. So my question is, with this new rate case, will MGE just proceed if it passes by the PSC that all of us will pay more for the LEDs as they are changed out? And does the rate case take into any consideration lowering that monthly facility fee? And then lastly, if in some way we found a way to get a grant together, Middleton and MGE, to do some retrofits or some replacement of MGE owned streetlights, then would that be getting us into it's great for carbon savings, but then it would be a fairly large increase in service fees to replace those. And so I just wondered what if the rate case, if it gets into that monthly facility fee, if it changes that to make it more advantageous.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have not seen what they're working on, but I know that was concerns that we've had in previous rate cases or when we first brought out LED to our products. So I think that's one of the things we're looking at. I would say we're looking to probably kind of change those monthly fees a little bit, just like we did with the electric vehicle charging. We're actually, to be honest with you, we'd rather own than rent. So if we came in there and let's say you guys had 200 fixtures or 200 lamps, we would probably, I would say we would want to put to, and I know for sure we would, because we've had this discussion at work before, that we would probably want to take ownership of them. So we would own them and then maintain, and then that's where we would be able to use our capital expense and then get some return on our investments that way. So yeah, I think the rate will go down. We've done the charging infrastructure. We've taken that down. I've seen that proposed. That went down lower than it was previously. So I guess as we advance, I could see it better, but I have not seen the rate case itself. But I will get a sneak at it. I'll talk to Brian Pennington, the director there. I know he's a little busy getting things together, but he did give me some information that I shared with you guys today. So I know he'll probably reach out to me in the morning or something to get some feedback from the meeting, and I will share some of these questions with him.
Thank you. Okay, Dominic, then Laura.
Hey, quick question for you, Sean. Well, I hope it's quick. One about labor availability and then another one about presumably cost. And maybe this is a question for you and Jesse. So Sean, in a spreadsheet that you pulled together and Kelly shared, you broke down 3 different scenarios. One, again, hypotheticals, included a snapshot of what it would look like if the city of Middleton were to own maintenance of the lamps as well. So the first question is, in that scenario, does that presumably mean that we would then have labor availability to, or I guess the high level question is, how does that affect our changeover rate that we can change over to LEDs? And the second part of that question is, would such a scenario require a full staff addition, multiple staff additions, a fractional addition to the operations and maintenance teams? Yeah, I think that's kind of the, and then the second part of that question was, presumably, in any scenario, who is shouldering the first cost of that lamp assembly, subassembly, the LED driver and the LED when you're changing over a functional lamp in the MG&E maintained case versus the Middleton maintained case. I think you can gather my questions from there. You're a smart guy. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, so I was just looking at several what if cases of the GSL, the general street lighting rate as it currently sits. And just saying, okay, so we've got a mixed bag of wattages and types and, what would it take? What would it look like from an annual billing perspective if we, the city of Middleton, went out and bought 1,000 fixtures and hired a contractor to put them up on poles, because there are fixtures, right? And it's a secondary question then, who's going to maintain them? So there was kind of one scenario that said the city will go buy a bunch of lights and change them out and, well, have a contractor change them out. And then continue to have MG&E maintain them, because let's say it's the MG&E standard fixture. Versus what would it look like if we did exactly that same thing, but the city took over annual, ongoing operational maintenance of these things. We do not currently have staff to do a lot of maintenance. We do a little bit of maintenance of street lighting. So one of my notes to the side was, well, then we'd have to look at our operating budget to figure out, do we need to carve out some additional staff time from somewhere else, or do we have to bring in additional staff to do that additional maintenance? And what makes the most sense might be a different option that I didn't even look at, but these were ones I was looking at just to say, what would it look like if we did this, right? I mean, I'll say too that when we converted, oh golly, I want to say this was in the late 80s probably, from metal halide bulbs to high pressure sodium lamps, that took 5 or 6 years too, where we partnered with MG&E and said, we're going to do whole neighborhoods at a time, but not the whole city all at once. And I think that was done over 5 or 6 years to get to the lights we've got now. This is sort of that same kind of problem. How many resources can we put into the field per unit of time? So if we want all of them done in a year or 6 months, we probably have to hire several contractors to do it.
I see. So am I correct that I heard your analysis is largely a financial analysis and addresses the constraints that we're currently facing in changeover, which are MG&E labor and cost to replace the fixtures. It just kind of assumes that all happens with some hypothetical grant. And so that it doesn't act, your spreadsheet actually is not a scenario which could accelerate, which looks at situations to accelerate changeover. It's really looking at what would happen after changeover.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm looking at the billing, the monthly billing costs as a snapshot in comparison.
Okay.
How did we get there?
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. Good discussion. Laura, you have the floor.
Hi, mine's kind of a follow-up on that, because I too was looking at the spreadsheet and noticing that and just trying to understand the changes. In thinking about this, I mean, we all want it done. Jesse had mentioned the labor. Let's say that, all right, Middleton decided we're going to try and do it ourselves. Does the labor out there does anyone know that exists? I know we have a job mismatch. Do we know if there are men and women out there that could actually, let's say we had all the money tomorrow. Does anyone know, could we get this done? Could the city hire somebody to do that? Could MG&E? Do we know about the labor?
I would say we can. I mean, you got Intercom, you got Hooper, you got some other businesses that have bucket trucks. That's the whole key to it. You just got to have the equipment up there. The one thing that I don't really want to speak for MG&E, but I'm going to do like one of you guys asked me just to take off my MG&E hat off for a second, is if you do hire your own manpower and not contract it out. And so let's just say you hire 4 individuals, and that's their job, 24, to 365 days. Well, maybe let them have the weekend off. But if you hire these guys, then one thing about LED, they last longer. So there's not gonna be as much change out like you have for high pressure sodium. So then now you hire them, and then what do they do after they've completed the job? Do we just let them go? So that's just my question. As just an individual, what do you do for them? Because you got more longevity on the LED. That's why we want them. You got less energy. But then after we've gotten that project done, then the maintenance is probably minimal for years. So just my opinion.
So does that make the case for just contracting it out, as a separate project rather than hiring or having full-time staff is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's my opinion. I would
Yeah.
say use individuals that are already doing this. They're already going up on poles and they're already changing out fixtures, and then they could do that. But as far as, and like Sean said, maybe if you did, a one person or 3/4 part of somebody's job doing it, I just don't see hiring individuals and then, having to let them go or find something else for them to do. Is there enough else to hire 4 people after they got done with the job? What would they do after that? I mean, you probably could find something for them, but then again, that is a part of your budget, because you got to see X number of dollars per year per person, and then you got to have, you're gonna have to buy more equipment. So I don't even know how much a truck would cost, 200 grand, with the bucket and everything. So there's a lot of numbers that a grant would make the difference.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause
Lauren,
it just is,
you have more.
go ahead,
keep-
just to kind of finish up, yeah, it just seems like with all the municipalities that want all of this done, we could, almost work together to cover Dane County. You could keep people employed for a pretty long time, just replacing all the lights out there, hopefully. Then the only other thing, while I have your attention and we can move on, is, another project I'm working on has to do with the energy management. I don't know if you can talk about the Dane County pilot that's going on. Like, we're trying to track our energy, and in the Energy Star program manager that the EPA has. But when you switched over to the new system in 2021, everything that we had set up in the portfolio manager didn't kind of match up with how the new bill was, which I think the new bill looks better, by the way. I like that. But now it makes inputting that data difficult. But before we set everything up for that, I hear that there's a pilot going on that you're going to help put that data that we can track all this stuff. You would share it directly with portfolio manager. Can you tell me anything about that pilot, how it's going, how fast it's going, and what we can do to track our energy a little bit better using that? Or if you don't know, someone I could contact and talk to about it?
I know someone you could contact, talk to it, but I do know about it. I actually have access to it myself. I've last month was trained on it. So you must have a lot of close friends, because we didn't let that out to everybody.
She's good.
So what right now, we're doing a pilot. We just got everybody switched over. So what it'll happen right now, was a on-demand service that customers were a part of it. So now what we've done, and we're going to get new meters to census meters, but what this pilot that we're doing, we're going to start off with, not that we don't like you guys, but this pilot actually will start with the city of Madison. And also, because city of Madison is already tracking and benchmarking. But we're going to be working with about 100 customers, test customers. So like Exact Science and some other customers and the city of Madison. What they'll do is go through our MGE webpage, mge.com, my account. And so what we've done is they'll sign up like they were going to look at their bills. There'll be a button on there. And then as soon as they do that, they'll, MGE has nothing to do with the benchmarking ordinance at the city of Madison. What we're trying to do is assist our customers. So it's not anything about us, but what it will do, as soon as you hit that button, it'll download your energy to Energy Star Energy Portfolio Manager, and it will give you scores. So that's going to kind of help you benchmark your data, and you can look at each meter. It's a really super cool tool. It's a lot easier. I've done the Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Kind of threw me off a little bit. I wasn't really comfortable. Now think about a business that has other things to do than the benchmark, to spend all kinds of time doing. So this will be a one-stop shop for them. So yeah, we do have it. We plan on, like I said, we tested last week. We plan to bring everybody into live mode in the next month and a half, and then pretty much have we're moving this pretty fast. We're hopefully have by the end of the year that anybody can sign up for it. So keep a lookout for it. You guys at the city of Middleton, you'll be able to benchmark your data without, even if there's not an ordinance, you still can just use it and submit it. And like, somebody always told me, you can't fix what you don't measure. So,
Right.
so yeah, hats off to you.
Great.
Well,
Thank you.
I'm Kelly. Lisa.
Thank you. I have a couple questions for Sean. So Sean, your description of, what would it look like if we were to buy 1,000 fixtures and hired the people to install them? All I can say is, as a member of council and at least currently the finance committee chair, I would look very favorably upon a proposal from Public Works to have like an annual amount budgeted every year in our capital projects for that type of neighborhood by neighborhood replacement. So, let's talk about how that can happen, and I'm willing to try to persuade my colleagues. Related to that, I note that in the 2023 approved capital budget items, there's of course the Pleasant View Road reconstruction, which is $14.5 million, Parmenter reconstruction, and replacing the traffic signal controller on Century and Allen. Are these three projects all going to be using LEDs? And if not, what would it take to make those projects use LEDs as standard?
Sure. I'm pretty sure that Pleasant View Road is set that way. We're matching Madison's fixtures there just for a cohesive look on the project, but I'm confident that that's an LED fixture. Parmenter Street is not yet in final design, but our new standard is LED. I had mentioned that Leotech Comfort View, which I think is MG&E's standard as well. So Public Works just recently, maybe a couple of months ago, adopted that as sort of our default. And traffic signal controllers really is about the controller box itself. It's not really about the lighting. But most, if not all, of our traffic signals were converted to LED quite some time ago. The only problem we found with them so far is when it's snowy, they don't generate enough heat to melt the snow off the lens. So sometimes we have to grab a long broom and knock the snow off of them. Just because they don't warm up. But other than that, they work well.
Great, thanks, Sean.
Kermit. You're on mute, Kermit.
There we go. Sticky button. Anyways, I have a sense that we probably are or should be drawing this agenda discussion to a close. And one takeaway that I think I'm wanting to impress upon Jesse as he reports back is that we are concerned enough about this transition and expediting it that you've heard us already start talking about how can we do this on our own if MG&E isn't going to get out and lead, how are we going to make this happen? And so I want that to be one of the takeaways from this, that Middleton and its Sustainability Committee is concerned and pushing for movement, and there are people from the community and in city council, and maybe even to some extent on staff, that are hearing this concern as well and contemplating how do we get around a sluggish response from MG&E. So we would love to see an expedited response from MG&E, and we want to be partners with MG&E, and MG&E should be piloting and leading the way. But if not, we're just chomping at the bit trying to figure out how to make this happen. And so that's just kind of a closing thought or comment that I think is important for your management to appreciate, that there's community pressure.
And I'll top that off. Sean, you go ahead next.
I was only going to add to that. I don't think it's quite as simple as saying, hey, MG&E, replace all the fixtures in Middleton, even if labor were available and parts were available, because the city of Middleton may have a favor for some aesthetics that are not inherent in the Cobra head fixtures. And so I think we need to have an internal city of Middleton discussion first of what's the tolerance of certain neighborhoods for a different kind of look than maybe they're used to. And because then that's something we have to figure out. And how those fixtures attach to poles is something then that we'll have to work through once we figure out the fixtures, because they're not all interchangeable. They're not all plug and play. So once we figure out our look, we'll have to figure out how to get it on a pole.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really good feedback too. And I just want to top it off here, and Kermit's absolutely right. We do need to bring this discussion to a close. But Jesse, I want to say, there's a part of me that, well, a lot of me that definitely absolutely agrees with Kermit, but I also just want to really make sure it's understood that I'm hearing, and we are hearing you, that I think if it were up to you personally, you would have this done on the speed we want it, and so that is clear. I am hearing that, we are hearing that, and we know that, I guess we hope that this conversation just gives you more leverage, maybe, to say, well, look, it's not even me, I'm getting the pressure because we're getting the pressure, and so, and I really like how you talked about, there's ways we can partner, and we want to do that. And, it's very important to us that we are a good partner, while trying to move this quickly too. So we really, and again, I'm highly impressed you are here at this meeting. I think we all are, because you're with, all these people, and you know what we want, and it's just you here. You don't even have colleagues, to say, well, it's not my fault. It's, so anyway, thank you very much for taking
No, I appreciate it. And like I said, with the city of Middleton, as Abby knows and Kelly knows, every time we want to do a project, we actually look to Middleton first, because you guys are so compatible. So like we did with the mock, we did the Maury Airfield. We always bring things to you guys and work really nice with you and your administration. So I will relay the message back to MG&E that we have an eager partner, and let's go ahead and see if we can move this up a little bit faster. So appreciate it.
Or maybe a lot faster, but you'll work on that for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Anyone else? I think we need to end, and we can let Jesse go. You're welcome to stay on, Jesse, but you don't have to. But any last questions? Are we good? I think we're good. Okay. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Yep. Okay. Bye. Okay. Thank you everyone for that very good discussion. I thought that was very helpful. I have a ton of notes. There's a lot of follow-up here, which I think is fabulous. Scott, you have a concern. Sorry, did you have your hand? If you had your hand up, Scott, I didn't see it. I'm sorry. LEDs on migratory birds. Yeah, okay. Okay, we can certainly talk about that moving forward. I don't have an answer for that right now. Okay. Do you want to talk about that, Scott? Are you okay with it being in the chat?
No, just in the chat. That was fine. It's just one. thing that I've been reading about and the effect that it has on nocturnal like animals and things like
Yeah.
that, because it's a
Okay.
different wavelength of light.
Okay, sure. So that's a good point. In the interest of time, do you mind if we kind of do some looking into that? I know we're doing the dark sky things and things like that. Do you mind if we just kind of table that for between this meeting and next meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna make a note of that though. LEDs, migratory birds. Okay, all right, next. And thank you everyone for your helpful input and feedback and reviewing the data and, you know, coming prepared to the meeting. That was very helpful. Where's Scott? Okay. Next, we need to talk about the resolution. So what the goal is to, I can let Kelly lead this part too. Lead cities, dark skies. Okay. Kelly, do you want to talk about this, the resolution, and what the goal is tonight to refer it to Public Works?
Sure. After speaking with Kendra Walkos, another alder, and Lisa Alder Hanairo, we thought the better way to move this resolution through the process would be to, instead of taking it straight to council tomorrow, which was a tight, quick timeline, we should perhaps refer this to Public Works Committee for more discussion. And it's really in Public Works that has quite a few decisions to make within this. You know, one question I have is, what decisions still need to be made for the aesthetic choices around the city? Like, how many choices are there to make, and how hard is it to get those decisions made so that if we do pursue LED replacement in a certain neighborhood, we're ready to go because we know what fixtures have been selected and have gone through Public Works and then approval in council aesthetically. This resolution lays out some of those things. I've gotten a lot of feedback via email from like Laura and Dick and others, and Sean Stowski as well, about, you know, changing some of the wording, structuring it slightly different. So I would like to take those changes. We can discuss it now, but take those changes and redline it, and then pass that along to the Public Works Committee to look at and perhaps further refine. But it's up to the committee. Like that's some advice, but you can decide what to do with this. The main thing is I wanted to have some actionable steps that either gets us the data we need to write the grants and make some decisions, or know what we don't know.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, then Kermit.
I would make a motion that we direct staff to edit this resolution to incorporate the comments she has received from committee members and from Public Works staff, and then refer this to the Public Works Committee. And if I can get a second, then I have a question for Sean.
I'll second that.
Kermit, does yours relate to Lisa's or?
If, as I understand it, making that motion and seconding it allows us to continue discussion, I just have a couple of comments or
Okay, sure.
questions.
Okay.
So I was willing to second Lisa's motion
Okay,
with
so
that
we have-
understanding. So, yeah.
But okay, so with Dick's
Dick,
second,
seconded it.
But
Okay.
yeah, that Dick got
Okay,
it.
so
I
all-
just wanted to ask Sean if he's still here, and I don't know if he is. I can't
I
see him
am.
anymore.
Yep.
Oh,
He
okay,
is.
great. Sean, the Public Works Committee meets a week from today,
Right, 27th, I want to say.
would you have room on your agenda for the committee to consider a revised resolution that night?
Probably, yes. I think there's room on the agenda. I am going to struggle this week to get together the agenda, but if everything falls into line, it's possible. Yeah.
Okay, and then your comments on the draft resolution, I think are worth incorporating. I had a question for you about project naming, because I know in the capital budget requests, everything has a 2-digit, -2-digit name, but then when they come to us for approval in finance and council, suddenly a third digit shows up. So, so your tweaking of the project number and title is appreciated. And that's all I have.
Sure, okay.
Okay, so should we take a vote? Or, we have.
Do we have discussion first before a vote?
I wanted to,
That was my understanding, so that's why
Okay, go ahead, Dominic.
I just wanted to
Go ahead.
ask if there was space
Sorry,
for.
Kermit. I'm not
sorry,
good at
go-
the Roberts rules, people. So, Kermit,
we can
Dominic,
flex, we can flex.
Keep going.
Dominic was, that's fine.
keep going.
I just wanted to ask if the sustainability committee would be able to view the final resolution before common council votes on it, if that was in the planned workflow. So I understood redlined version sent to Public Works Committee for discussion and comment. Does it then come back here before common council, or does it go straight to common council? I don't want to slow anything down, but I would love to see the final version. Personal thought.
That's a good thought too. Okay, looks
Mhm,
like there's a
mhm.
lot of thumbs up on that. I see. Kermit, do you still have
Yeah,
commentary?
well, one, I was just going to, I recall that Lisa had made a suggestion regarding removing some clause about that they always should be replaced with LED bulb fixtures from the resolution. And I was going to suggest that actually we keep that clause in to be part of providing added ammunition and support for the rate case, because that
Oh.
rate case, the process is not going to happen overnight. It hasn't been approved yet. So anything we can do to help support that, including by something like a resolution, I think would be worth including and worth approving. And the other question I have, and maybe this is to be taken down as a possible note for inclusion, but one of the other issues that crossed my mind was the light pollution, dark skies in general, and the migratory bird situations. Perhaps there's a narrower issue of concern, but is there some value in acknowledging that as a consideration in the context of the resolution? And so whether that needs further discussion or whether that's something that Kelly can research and tweak language for, but I would consider it could be valuable to identify that as an explicit area of concern as we move this project forward.
Kermit, I will just quickly mention that Laura, on the draft of the revisions, the red line that I forwarded to you, Laura actually responded with some really fabulous edits to
Okay.
Dick's edits, but I was worried about the quorum numbers and it was
Yeah.
getting kind of too big, so I did not forward that back to you and share it. But we can either share it here now or we can share it after the meeting, things like that. So Kelly, go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Kelly.
Yeah, if I was going to ask Sean, process-wise, would Public Works then refer the further comments that Public Works has back to sustainability, or can we ask that Public Works refers it back to sustainability before council?
I think the latter would be helpful then in the motion, because often it just goes from one committee to the next committee to the council. It's sort of linear, not circular.
Okay, that's good to know. So I'm asking that maybe we could amend the motion, then I'll let someone make that amended motion then to have
Well,
the come back.
Since I made the original motion, I'm happy to amend the motion to specify that Public Works send their red line back to us for consideration in April. And Dick, since you seconded my motion, do you
I
approve that
second
change?
that. I second that amendment.
Okay, great. And I'm okay waiting until then. I mean, 5 to 8 years. we have some time to do this, although I do want to get it done sooner rather than later. April 18th is the day that the new council and mayor will be sworn in. So that would be a good time for committee members to show up if we get on the agenda for, you know, the timing works. It would be great to have one of the last acts of the current council be to approve this resolution. The dark skies, I agree with Kermit. I think it would be, I think it was Kermit who suggested it would be good to cover that briefly, if only to make it clear that we are thinking of this, you know, we haven't missed something. And then the idea of waiting until April is also good because the resolved clause that I said, you know, maybe moot at this point. I'm happy to keep it in there and change it to an expression of support, which we would also, you know, want to follow up with a letter from council and the new mayor. And that might give us time to see the draft, because I am uncomfortable saying that the committee or the council supports a rate case when we really have no idea what's in it, other than, you know, what we heard from Jesse tonight. Thanks.
Okay, so I heard a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that, or should we take a vote? All right, hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any nays? Don't hear any. Passed, fabulous. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Kelly, you ready to move on to the next one? It's a
Sure.
big night. This is a big
Sure.
night.
Yeah. And thank you, Sean, for coming and answering questions. It's really helpful. And I'm really looking forward to working with the Public Works Committee on this and learning more too. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Sean.
Sure. Have a good rest of the evening.
Okay, thank you. You too. Thanks for taking time out of your night.
Oh, yeah. No. Pleased to do it.
Okay,
Okay,
Kelly.
so for this item, as part of the Energy Efficiency Navigator program, where we're working in affordable housing in Middleton, that there's another project in conjunction with that that's very much a part of it, but it's a different funding source. It's not funded through ARPA, but we have gotten a Healthy Babies Bright Futures grant, $20,000 to help merge public health and neurotoxic reduction in housing along with the energy retrofits. And so the grant included work alongside the energy efficiency work for lead mitigation, mold and dampness mitigation, and also pesticide reduction in housing, mostly from pesticides used to control pests, and also pests in housing can also be a source of allergens, which exacerbates asthma. And so one of the experts it's a national organization that happens to have its local, happens to have its base in Madison, is the IPM Institute, and that stands for Integrated Pest Management Institute. And they run a lot of different programs across the country, working very closely with the EPA in schools and buildings and also outdoors, IPM for public lands, private lands, that kind of stuff. And IPM is basically a least toxic method of pest control, whether it's outdoors or indoors, where you look at all the least toxic methods before you would resort to using any kind of chemical. And then when you resort to using a chemical, then it's something that's the least toxic choice possible. But in that program, there's a lot of methods and strategies that are used so that it really does work well, and it tends to combine really well with energy efficiency work, because a lot of it is sealing holes where pests would get in, which would also be where drafts would come in. It's looking at mold and water dampness in apartments and houses and schools, and mitigating that. And so this proposal is about $4,800, $4,894, I think, which would come out of the $20,000 Healthy Babies Bright Futures grant and would fund their top expert at their organization. He's Green Seal certified, so he is certified to go into buildings and assess them in a very detailed manner and then provide recommendations to the owner. It would work alongside with our engineer and energy experts that will be in these buildings looking at energy issues. So I think that there will be a lot of overlap with those. And what I'm hoping to do is learn from this so that we can start combining more public health work with our energy work in general in the community and in our city buildings as well. So we're having lastly, I'll say we're having a public health summit with the IPM Institute with 4 members of Dane County Public Health and also some UW folks who are working on lead data specifically in Middleton, surprisingly, and some experts at Elevate Energy who do this work. And we're meeting for a 2-hour meeting to talk about program design and how to create a replicable program so that if we do this work again, or if really anyone does this work, that there's a workflow and a program design for how to combine addressing toxins in the home at the same time that you're addressing energy efficiency. So in order to push this through the city process, I'm bringing it to the Sustainability Committee in hopes that you will recommend approval for this scope of work, and then we'll take that to council for approval.
Lisa, do you have a comment?
I have a motion. I'd like to move that the committee recommends that the Finance Committee and Council accept the proposal from IPM Institute for using grant funds for Energy Efficiency Navigator Program.
Kermit, do you have a comment or?
Question or two, I guess it's related to,
Well, can I get a second first for my motion?
oh, I'm sorry.
So then we
I'll
can go
second
into
it.
discussion. Okay, and then I did have one question for Kelly, and that is, I see the proposals for 2 units. That means 2 apartments, correct? And if so, is it going to be 2 apartments in the same building? How will those 2 specific units be chosen?
Typically, when the energy assessment happens, Elevate Energy will go into usually just 1 unit in a building. And instead of having to disrupt all the tenants in a building, and they'll assess in 1 unit. So the plan initially was for IPM Institute to go into 2 buildings. So that would be 1 unit in 1 building and another unit in another building. That would also include, you know, when they go down in the basement, and if they go up into an attic that's not tenant space, the IPM manager would go in those spaces as well. The IPM Institute would actually prefer to walk through the entire building in every unit. So I think there's still a little bit of leeway within those hours that he's provided, which is, I believe, 8 hours, to be a little lenient on where he goes in. But we had specified doing this in 2 buildings, sort of as a pilot, just in case the timing didn't work out for him to get into all 6 or 8 buildings that we end up working in. So that's where this stands right now.
Okay, and to follow up, the remaining 20,000, or what remains of the $20,000, a little over 15, that will go toward remediation of these 2 units or buildings, or what?
We haven't specified that for sure which buildings. I think it will really depend on what we see in the energy assessments and in these 2 buildings that Tom will go through from the IPM Institute. It will be mostly used for mitigation. So if we see things like a leak that could be easily fixed to reduce mold growth, then that could be something that is taken care of through this grant. And I think it'll have to be sort of an on-the-ground assessment for where the money is spent, depending on what we see when we're in those buildings. There will be some portion of that money for that grant spent on food for the Public Health Summit program design, and probably for an event which we do after the project finishes, which will be like a tenant building owner outreach event. And what I'd like to do is put together a rough budget of this. I have it on paper, but I'd like to actually submit it to the committee so that the committee has an outline of where the $20,000 will be spent, so that in a public meeting, it's been vetted and looked at.
Thank you.
I'll quickly comment that Kelly is absolutely right, and having a lot of knowledge about the disease state of asthma, cockroaches actually cause just terrible asthma in kids, puts them in the emergency room all the time. It's horrible. Kermit.
Yep, thanks. Lisa kind of brought up one of the questions I had, so I think that is correct. We're going to see a budget for what happens to the full 20,000, and some of it may go to mitigation or remediation, but you're still sorting that out. It does raise the question of, if we identify tons of issues, do we have other sources of money to address or resolve those, rather than just saying, oh, this apartment is going to kill you, but we can't do anything about it. Sorry. I mean, I guess I'd phrase that as a question to keep on the front burner, even for moving things along. Let's see. You know what? I think that was it. I thought I had something else here, but I think as I'm playing back what's been said so far, that covers it. So thanks.
Thank you. Dick?
Yeah, so Kelly, you're asking for us to move forward on it. Lisa made a motion. And yet we don't know how this money is being spent. So it feels like, yes, we want to support it, but it feels like 15,000 of the grant needs to be figured out how it's going to be allocated. And so do we support just the 4,900 that's being allocated now with the idea that you're going to come up with a later budget for the whole thing? It just feels like you're asking to support something when we don't really know the whole. So I'm just questioning that.
Kelly, if I may answer that, it's very common for council to consider proposals for this chunk of the grant work. And then when Kelly figures out what the rest of the work is going to look like and who's going to be doing it, finance and council will consider those agreements at that time.
All of this work is difficult to know up front until you're in the building and see what problems there are. And the grantee knows that as well, and was okay with us saying we're going to spend 20,000 on mitigating lead, mold, and pesticides. So this is an attempt to actually, start doing that work, and we won't really know what Dr. Green's recommendations will be until he does the actual assessment. And the same way with the energy for Elevate, they will go into the building, and some places might need insulation, others may have great insulation, but we go towards heat pumps. So it's really after the assessment, you'll know exactly where the money will be spent, but I can put together a rough budget document.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just as a point of reference, does the city of Middleton, all the public lands and public buildings, do they use integrated pest management? I know the school district does.
No, that's actually in our comprehensive plan. I stuck that in. I used to work in IPM, and I worked in public housing and schools and public lands in Chicago. It was my first job. And so that we do have a action in the comp plan to create an IPM plan for public lands.
Okay, Kermit?
Another question that did just recur to me is sustainability the only committee that would best cover the the public health dimension or issue? Or is there another committee that should also be looped in on this?
I don't know of one. I feel like taking it through a committee is helpful to provide some support for council. It's a fairly low amount of a contract or a proposal. I think with a project like this on these types of timelines, when you don't know when you're going to get into the building to assess, and everyone wants everything done immediately. I'm trying to think of ways to take the stuff, be able to do the work without having to get way in the weeds for every expenditure of city business in order to do the work and do the process, like taking it through 3 committees and explaining integrated pest management and assessment and having to make your case like all those times. When it's been talked about so much with the experts and I mean, it needs to go through these public processes, but I don't know who else you would take it to. Yeah, I wish we had, I mean, it'd be cool to have a health committee, but I guess we already have enough committees.
Yep, but I guess we're it.
Yeah. In the interest of time, I think we should take a vote on this. Does everybody agree with that? Yeah, okay, so all in favor of approval of the
Aye.
motion? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Don't see any. Great job. Okay, fabulous. While Kelly is writing that up, let's move on to, at least did you still want a motion for sustainable purchasing policy? I'm just thinking about time only.
I think we have the announcement of the.
No, we do.
awards.
We definitely have
Yeah.
the awards next. How much time do we need for SPP?
5 minutes.
Okay, well, 5 minutes. So we have 2 minutes for, we'll make it 4 for that discussion. We only have 4. So Sustainable Middleton Award, you're up.
Okay, I guess we can just announce who we've chosen for the award. We've talked about what we were going to do. There's 3 businesses that will be awarded on the 6th of April at the Get Going Middleton breakfast for the Chamber of Commerce, and that is UW Health, Standard Imaging, and Purple Cow Organics. And then I should have said first, we've got 2 nonprofits that are going to be awarded at the City Council meeting on the 4th, Election Day. And that's going to be the school district and also the Friends of Pheasant Branch. In the interest of time, I guess that's really the nitty gritty. That's all we need to really talk about, I think, unless Dick wants to say something else.
I will quickly comment that there was a lot of work that Dick and Deb did on these, a lot of legwork, a lot of reviewing, and I think they're great. Lisa.
Just as a point of order, I think it would be great if Deb could read those awardees in the context of a motion that the Sustainability Committee approves these awards, because it is an action of the whole committee. Not to get too nerdy, but I just think that would be more appropriate to have it be the committee that approves this list.
Okay,
To also read what why they got the award, a little 2-3 sentence
a
blurb.
lot of
under.
time, Dick.
Yeah.
But, well, all right. Standard Imaging for operating a low carbon footprint facility in Middleton by using geothermal for heating and cooling and solar energy for 28% of electricity, by eliminating natural gas, by recycling paper and metal waste, and by reducing and eliminating hazardous materials. UW Health for committing to improve energy efficiency at their Middleton facility by reducing greenhouse gas emissions 64% and by achieving an Energy Star score of 92 in 2022. the school district for implementing sustainability at Pope Farm Elementary School by using geothermal heating and cooling in their new energy efficient building, by practicing recycling, composting, and by teaching environmental principles using the outdoors as a classroom for all grades. Purple Cow Organics for composting 9,000 tons of plant material annually, including yard waste from Middleton, thereby creating a product that improves soil health, reduces runoff, and sequesters carbon. And finally, the Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy for stewarding the conservancy by restoring its wetlands and oak savanna to improve water quality, provide wildlife habitat, including for grassland birds, and produce prairie seeds for other restorations, and by fostering environmental education and recreation. And so I move that the Sustainability Committee approve giving those 5 entities Sustainable Middleton Awards for this past year.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Don't see any. Great. Great job. These awards.
Thank you.
Lots of attention to detail. Okay, Lisa, let's move
Okay.
to sustainable
Sus-
purchasing policy.
Yep, sustainable purchasing policy. Kelly, can you bring that up? So Kelly and Christy and I met with City Administrator Brian Gatto and Finance Director Bill Burns last week and got some input from them on this policy. I can tell you the changes that we're going to be making include just a typo in one of the bullets. If you'll scroll down to section 2.2C, Kelly. Okay, so wait, sorry, go back a little bit, because somebody, Bob pointed out earlier in his comments, I just realized this. We will change that to reference the city's own goal. It was conflating the all energy with city's electric needs. So we'll correct that. Okay, now go to 2.2C. It was suggested that leasing or renting is generally not preferred for fiscal benefits. And I mean, it's more of a fiscal benefit to own rather than lease or rent. But we talked about situations where maybe we need to buy a piece of equipment this year and the EV is not available yet. Could we lease or rent an ICE piece of equipment for a year or two until we know that the electric product is going to be available? So we're changing that wording to talk about evaluating the benefits of leasing or renting in that type of specific circumstance. We're going to change 3.1. If you'll scroll down to that one, Kelly. To put the burden on not the city, but on the Common Council. So we're just going to rephrase that to say, to ensure that the goals and priorities of the sustainable purchasing policy are met and progress is reported, comma, the Common Council will need to provide sufficient staffing, funding, and resources. Give somebody the responsibility for that. Speaking of responsibility, in section 3.4A, instead of just the city administrator shall be responsible for all these things, we received feedback that maybe it should say the city administrator or their designees, plural. So we're changing that. We also found out from Bill and Brian that they saw no reason for us to wait until the implementation plan is ready, that we could make the changes to this and forward it to council for approval in April, and then follow up. We would change there's a reference to the implementation plan being attached, so we'll change that wording as well. And in the implementation plan, which we would write afterwards, we would include a checklist to make things easy for staff to figure out, how to do the right thing, basically. And then Bill had also asked us to try to come up with some ideas for operationalizing the equity benefits, because right now we just say, consider using women-owned businesses or African-American owned businesses. But, what does that mean? Should we put something in there like if the cost is 10% higher, consider going with that bidder, even if the cost is higher, because we want to achieve these equity goals. So we are a little behind schedule, both tonight, but also in the development of this. That was not unexpected. If you recall, when we talked about the timeline, we knew it was ambitious. So if the committee will approve the draft before you with those changes that I ran through, if you'll approve that tonight, we can forward this to council for the meeting on April 4th. And then we can develop the implementation plan in April in time to get it to the new council sometime in May.
Is that technically a motion, or do we need a motion? Kermit, go ahead.
There were a few phrasing questions that I had, some trivial on the order of grammatic, and others just concerned about the impact of the language. I don't know that we have allowed time for much discussion of those or any other questions any other committee members may have. So do we want to forward suggestions to you, Lisa, for review, or what?
I have the file, and if the committee would rather wait and package this item with, not package it, but send it to council at the same time as the LED streetlight conversion resolution, we can do that and schedule these both to be on the agenda for April 18th when this current council is wrapping up.
Yeah, it's just too much to digest in 2-3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, Dominic, you have a comment?
Well,
about it?
yes, but to be fair, this was, I believe this was included in the packet on Friday.
I think this got
and-
added on at the last, did this get added on a little bit later though, Kelly? I couldn't remember. Yeah,
But, yeah, be that as it may, my point is that we don't have time. We're into negative time now as far as the meeting and intent, so.
Yeah.
And I reviewed it before the meeting and I have some questions and observations, so.
okay. Dominic?
I was just gonna share that some of the feedback as I've heard it so far has not affected the material impact of this policy. I think it's a great document. I'd support moving forward, but I also won't pour cold water on desires to further digest it and reevaluate at a future time.
Thank you, Dominic. I appreciate that. And, I would just say it's up to the committee. I know we are, the public comments we've been getting for the last several months have been encouraging us to move as expeditiously as possible with this policy. And you have had 3 people and Kelly, 3 committee members and Kelly have worked on this draft. So I'm heads up to Kermit. minor tweaking and style is probably not going to be incorporated. But major problems, sure.
Laura and
Yeah.
then Dick. Laura, did you have a quick comment?
Well, the only thing I was thinking is that I know Robert Owen commented on putting some language in there from that kind of mirrored the Dane County language. We didn't really discuss that. I mean, I think it's a good document. I think Kevin also made a comment that it's better than nothing. So it's almost like, do we want to keep working on it till it's perfect, or is it better now to get this thing done and moved forward so that we can, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. It's like, which way do we want to kind of go here?
Good thoughts, Dick?
Was this in the original thing that Kelly put out on Friday? Because I didn't see it. Or did you put it in later in the packet?
I know she added it. I know she added it, and I'm pretty sure it was Friday, because when I went to download the packet on Friday, it was there, and I was surprised because I thought she had not put it in.
Did it go a little bit later, Kelly? Something went a little bit later, right?
Yeah, I think I stuck it on later in the morning or.
So if someone, in all fairness, if someone had looked at the first email you sent and then took that.
That's all I downloaded, and so I didn't see it. So I am
Yeah.
willing to pass it because I know how much work you've put in it. But I have not had it, I didn't review it because I looked at the first packet and I didn't go back to the packet again until right this meeting. So if it's a time sensitive need to get this out by this April meeting, it feels like we've got a whole new administration coming on and you want them to buy into it. So does it really make sense to pass it to the Common Council for the April 4th meeting, the day of the election, when there's going to be a whole new set of people coming on? If somebody makes a motion to pass it, I will go for it. But I just raise these issues that it feels like there's a bunch of different things we want to get cleaned up. So I'm gonna be quiet.
To respond, I would say a couple things. One, we talked to the actual administrator. We will have a new council. Does this committee want to take a chance on the new council being as up to speed on sustainability and its importance as the current council is? Also, does the committee want to take a chance on having 2 sustainability related items come before council at its last meeting before swearing in the new council members? I think having one in the beginning of April and one following, I'm fairly confident they will both pass. If 2 of them come up at the same time, I could imagine there being a little pushback, like we're putting way too much of an emphasis on sustainability in the city's operations. So that means if we don't pass it tonight and decide to not and don't want to take a chance on putting 2 things before council, that means we would have to wait until council's first meeting in May. And I'm okay with that if that's how the rest of the committee wants to go.
Kermit?
We have done provisional approvals, as I recall, where we say, okay, we like 95% or more easily. And we approve it, but we then allow for final edits to take place after the meeting, after the approval. I'd be willing to just float some of my items to Lisa and defer to her judgment. I just think, anyways, just to expedite things, I'd be willing to do that because I don't want us to bog down and have a super long meeting tonight unnecessarily.
Yeah, we have to wrap up. We're going against all norms here.
Or reverting to very old norms that we've been trying to grow beyond.
Yes, okay, okay. What about, so I hear a motion from Kermit, and so we would need a second on your motion. Is that, am I hearing this right?
That could,
Your
yeah,
provisional-
if we want to take that as a motion, right?
Kermit, can you state your motion?
Yeah, so let me move to approve the plan as presented while allowing Lisa to receive any additional input for final adjustments at her discretion.
I would second that.
I would ask to change plan to policy and
Okay,
make it clear that we're approving this for forwarding to council.
okay. I accept those friendly amendments.
Okay, Laura, do you second that?
I second that. Mhm.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Any no's? No. Okay, thank you. Great work. Shreya, I'm sorry we did not really give you time tonight. Do you have anything super quick update? You're usually very concise anyway.
Yeah, I just have a quick 30 seconds. I can send out the rest in an email.
Okay,
So
perfect.
the the green team's still working on the things they're working on last month because there's been no new things happening. On the composter, we made a little progress. So I talked to a bunch of the kids on the green team, and a lot of them, a lot of their parents were willing to write us letters of support. And I sent Mr. Lathrop a draft of the letter, and he gave me some edits. So I'm gonna try to fix those, and I'm gonna send out the letter before spring break so the parents have time to write the letters over break and give them a chance to write us letters of support.
Great work. And thank you,
And
Dick,
I
for,
can,
yeah.
yeah, and I can send out the letter to the committee. I think I'll fix the edits tomorrow, so I'll send it out tomorrow.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. I think that we've handled mostly everything we need to tonight. We got so much done. Lisa, the only thing is I have fleet update, but if it's any, and I can't remember what it is right now, if it's anything, is it like one?
Just one sentence. It has been requested that the finance committee try to reconsider a motion that we approved last time, letting the Parks Department acquire a new ICE zero-turn mower. And I may or may not see if I can bring that up for reconsideration, not to squash the purchase, but to refer it to the Parks, Recreation and Forestry Commission, and actually to refer it to Public Works and Sustainability Committee as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any standing agenda item, anything anyone would like to see on the agenda for April? And of course, if you don't say it now, you can always email Kelly or I as well.
Work plan.
Work plan, yes. Yep. Which is a plan to have the work plan. We need a plan for a plan. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Dick,
So moved.
Permit second, everybody
Second.
motions, everybody seconds.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate everything that went into this meeting. It was a lot, but we got a lot done too.
Kelly, you don't need to indicate who gets the motions to adjourn and all that. You just say a motion was approved to adjourn.
Well, that's how we usually do it anyway. We're unanimous here at the end. Okay, thank you.